Joining me now is Kenneth MacLeod, President and CEO at Sonoro Gold. Great to see you again, Kenneth.
Great to see you too, Mark. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Now, it was about a month ago that you held your Red Cloud webinar. I had the good fortune of hosting that, so it'll be nice to get an update. We know that you've hit a milestone with your preliminary economic assessment, but before we get to that, if you could just remind everybody, refresh viewers, and for those who may not know the Sonoro Gold story that well, if you could give us a brief overview.
Oh, by all means. The Cerro Caliche story goes back to around 2017. And at that time, Sonoro had another project called the San Marcial project, which is located 30 kilometers away from the current Cerro Caliche project. And we had reached a bit of an impasse at the San Marcial project, in that we were looking to acquire additional land, and it was going to take some time to acquire that. So in the meantime, our VP Exploration, Mel Herdrick, who's had a tremendous life of exploration and discovery. And in fact, Mel has discovered over 5 million ounces of gold to his credit over the years. And Mel had a suite of projects that we had to take a look at in order to see if we could find a suitable one to supplement the San Marcial project. And so we set about, we looked at 5 different projects in Sonora State and in Chihuahua State. And we found the Cerro Caliche project to be absolutely the most compelling of all the projects. So we started negotiating in late 2017, and over a period of months, maybe around 7 or 8 months, we acquired the 5 concessions that now comprise the Cerro Caliche project. And so we started drilling at Cerro Caliche in November of 2018. And the initial data that we had on that project was suggested that there was a potential for a very large open pittable heap leachable oxide deposit, because 2 prior operators had done some work on the project, on the site, in 2008 and 2011. And collectively, they had drilled about 11,000 meters. And we acquired that data from these 2 operators, and it enabled us then to start with a database that was very informative and enabled us to then go ahead and do some additional drilling. And we've conducted over 43, maybe 44,000 additional meters of drilling in the intervening 4 years now. But it also enabled us to have a stellar record of success with all of our drilling. And so if you look at our database and you look at the drilling and you look at the intercepts that we've encountered in every single one of these holes, we've encountered meaningful amounts of gold mineralization. And so it's been a very, very successful outcome for us in acquiring Cerro Caliche. And now we're at the point with a grand total of almost 55,000 meters of data in our database. And we've now presented this PEA to the world, which will enable us to go into production, hopefully in the near future.
Right, let's get to that PEA. One of the numbers that stands out is the estimate for the initial capital expenditure at $15.5 million. And about a month ago, you had said that may come in at 20 to 25 million. So can you explain the strategy about starting small and then eventually using cash flow to fund future expansion?
By all means. The 2 compelling reasons for starting small. One is the condition of the junior resource markets has been extremely troublesome and extremely trying over the past couple of years. It may change over the coming year, but we can't really afford to take that chance. We want to get into production and at the same time minimize the dilution to the shareholders when we actually secure the project financing to construct the mine. So initially, yes, I talked to you about a month ago about $20 to $25 million. And that figure is still quite a reasonable figure to aim for when it comes to opening a mine. But we went about dealing with our suppliers in Mexico, and the crusher suppliers, for example, have been very, very cooperative with us. And instead of purchasing the crusher up front, we've been able to enter into a lease to purchase agreement with the crusher distributors, and enables us then to move the majority, almost 95% of the crusher cost, into operating capital as opposed to upfront project finance. So that reduced the upfront capital cost substantially by about $45 million. And then as far as the leach pad is concerned, that is another major cost factor for us. And so rather than building the entire leach pad to accommodate 12 to 15,000 tons per day, we started off at designing the leach pad to accommodate 4,000 tons per day. And in years 2 and 3, we can then, at our leisure and out of cash flow, expand the leach pad to accommodate the future 12,000 tons per day initially. And hopefully, as we continue with the drilling program and expand the resource, we should be able to increase the leach pad to whatever the future may hold for us in that regard. As for the crusher, the idea with the crusher, of course, is that we are able to turn in the initial 4,000 ton per day crusher and exchange it for the 12,000 ton per day crusher during year 3, so that in year 2, so that in year 3, starting in year 3, we will be able to seamlessly expand the production to 12,000 tons per day, also on a lease to purchase basis. And that enables us, once again, to keep the capital costs of the upfront capital cost to a minimum. So I think other aspects we looked at was instead of putting the transmission line in day 1, we would operate with the generators in the first 2 years, and then and during the second year we would then work with the transmission line company to enable us to bring the transmission line all the way into Cerro Caliche. And there's several routes available to us with a transmission line. One, of course, is a simple addition to the nearby Cerro Prieto mine, which would then enable us to bring the line in over about a 5 kilometer distance, or go further back into near where the Mercedes mine is located, and that would be more like a 12 to 14 kilometer distance. Either way, it's a very small distance to bring a transmission line in, and we've incorporated the costs for the worst case scenario into our project finance costs.
Ken, another number that stands out from the PEA is the pre-tax internal rate of return. 59% is the estimate. After tax, 45%, both robust numbers. Can you flesh those out for us and some of the other highlights from the PEA?
Yes, the PEA internal rate of return is substantial. There's no doubt about it. And even if you were to compare us with some of the large multi-$100-million projects that are either in construction or being contemplated around the world, our internal rate of return is robust. So I'm comfortable with that. In that, one of the let me give you a little anecdote of one of our colleagues from the mining industry whose philosophy was, I want to start small and build up out of cash flow, and that way the risk has been minimized. And if I'm going to fail, I want to fail small. Well, in this case here, I look at starting off small as an insurance policy. I look at it as we get into production with a minimal amount of capital, i.e. the $15 million, which I believe is able to be raised to even in the toughest of markets. And then we build up out of cash flow, so that there's very little ability on the part of the shareholders to get hurt by any dips in the market during the intervening period, because once we're in production and developing cash flow, then we are able to do two things. One is not have to go back to the marketplace continuously to raise equity finance, but B, to put enough money aside out of cash flow to continue with the drilling program. And if you want to look at the project as it stands today, and think of it right now as a 12,000 ton per day program, We believe very strongly that with additional drilling, which will be funded out of cash flow, we can then continue to increase the size of the resource, thereby increasing the throughput in the project. And we feel that the potential for this project is several times greater than the size of the resource we have today. And so we are looking forward to getting the project financed and built. And we can talk about the environmental permit in a second. But once we're in production, then the pressure is off in the marketplace, and we should be able to self-fund most of the future expansions for the project.
Let's stick with financing before we get to permitting. Where does that stand, and what's your approach? Are you in talks right now?
Oh, yes, we're in talks. We've been constantly in touch with our folks in Mexico and in Mexico City. The Semarnat, the environmental agency, has been, unfortunately, has been tied up with respect to permitting over the past few years because of governmental policies. Now that is changing. We understand that permits are now being granted, and that Semarnat will be in a position to hopefully review and approve our project in the near future. And we're quite confident that the project will stand up to scrutiny, because we really have had very little in the way of negative environmental impact. In fact, there's none that we can think of. And from a social perspective, this project is highly regarded in this part of Mexico, and is warmly welcomed, because it's going to bring a lot of higher paying jobs and a good future for the community. So we believe very strongly that if over the next few months, we should be able to get the definition on the environmental permit, if not actually the approval on the environmental permit. So we're very optimistic that we're in the 11th hour of this very, very long journey that will bring us into the start of construction in the near future.
So let's say the permit comes in the next couple of months or so. What does the path to production look like? What's the time frame?
Time frame, there's one additional permit that is required to actually go and start construction, and that is a change of land use permit. Now, this is a much simpler application, and it goes to the local office in Sonoro for Semarnat. And so we have a lot of support at the governmental level in Sonora State. And so we believe that the change of land use permit is merely, it's going to be done very, very quickly. And anything from 1 to 3 months will be the permit process for the change of land use. So once that has been submitted, and we expect to do that very shortly, then we should be able to get into production, or start the site preparation in the fall. And if right now it's the end of August, and we're looking at getting the change of land use permit hopefully by the end of September, October, that enables us then to start the site preparation. And if that is the case, then by this time next year, we're getting very close to actually going into production. And the forecast currently is for the last quarter of 2024 to be the start of actual production. In other words, the leach pad has been loaded, the cyanide will be applied, and it's probably a 60 to 90 day process for the leach to percolate through the ore. And then we start the cash flow immediately after that. So that's the plan of action. And the goal is to obviously start mining by this time next year, so we start loading the leach pad in the third quarter, so that we can start generating revenue in the last quarter of 2024.
Lastly, Ken, you've said that one of the key differentiators for Sonoro Gold compared to peers is what you're talking about there. You are a near-term producer. You've got the heap leach strategy. The project does not cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So how would you briefly sum up the investment case for investors?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. That is probably one that I relish having posed to me. The investment case is very simple. We're starting off with a minimum of risk to build this mine. 4,000 tons a day, building up to 12,000 tons a day in year 2, so that by year 3 we're up to 12,000 tons per day. In the meantime, that has a definitive value. We mentioned before, the net after tax internal rate of return is 45%. And the net present value after tax is almost $48 million US. We translate that to Canadian, and you're probably around $75 million. So here we are right now with a market cap of approximately $12 million Canadian. So you can see there's potential for an improvement in the share price simply based upon the market cap versus the value of the project as it stands today, discounted at 5%. Now, we're not going to sit on our haunches and then just do and not do any more drilling. The goal is we have 2 types of drill programs that we're lining up. One is the area to the west of the Colorado zone and the Guadalupe vein zones, where we have significantly higher average grades. In fact, the average grades there are double the average grade for the entire project. So you're very close to plus or minus a gram in this area to the west. We want to emphasize that the drilling in that area to expand the high grade zone is of the utmost priority. But also we have identified another area to the north, massive area in the order of about 2 by 3 kilometers in extent. And we feel that this area, which is underlain with rhyolite, is a prime target for us to achieve even greater depth. It's at the upper end of the boiling zone within the low sulfidation epithermal system. And this we're starting to see there's elevated gold grades, elevated silver grades, and even base metal grades in that area. And it's only been partially drilled. There's very little, there's a nominal amount of drilling that's been done there to demonstrate that the resource is within that particular zone. And so we feel that area there could increase the size of the resource substantially. And if you look at the current area that has been drilled and assayed and has been calculated by SRK as having 440,000 ounces of gold equivalent, 420,000 ounces of gold within the pit shells, and surrounding the pit shells, they're postulating the potential for up to 275,000 additional ounces. So when you take that mineralization into account and then extrapolate, that's probably around 30% of the known mineralized zones in the property have been identified to date. And this area to the north should bring us up to 50%. And we believe that the value of the ore in the ground, the potential ore in the ground in that new northern zone is every bit as great as the value of the mineralization in this zone that's been identified to date. So we feel comfortable in saying that we're on the cusp of increasing the size of the project, the size of the resource, to unlock the true value of the Cerro Caliche property. And we believe that the true value is certainly significantly higher than the value that's been reflected in the market today.
Well, thanks for the update today, Kenneth. We'll be following, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark. A real pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. You've been listening to Kenneth MacLeod, President and CEO of Sonoro Gold. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.